So there I was, 33 years old, pulled over on the side of the road, gripping the steering wheel, wondering what in the world was wrong with me. Nothing big had happened, no tragedy, no sirens behind me, no accident. Just a big mess that I've been avoiding for decades. The strange part, it wasn't my fault. I didn't cause it, I didn't choose it. And I started to wonder, because I believed for years that if I didn't cause and choose it, why do I still have to carry it? Have you ever felt that way? A mess that you didn't choose, a mistake that you didn't make, but the mess was leaped upon you? Well, you're actually in good company. I want to share a few examples of people who've also felt that way. Nelson Mandela. He did not choose the prison, but yet he spent 27 years in a prison because he opposed apartheid in South Africa. And when he got out, what did people expect? Revenge. But what did he choose? Reconciliation. Malala. She did not choose the bullet. But this young Pakistani girl at 15 years old was shot in the head because she was an advocate for young girls' education. And she could have cowered in fear, and we would have said, okay, yeah, we understand. But instead, she chose to turn that moment into a global movement. And Viktor Frankl, he did not choose the concentration camp. He lost his parents. He lost his brother. He lost his wife. But he said something remarkable after he was out. He said, everything can be taken from a person except one thing: the freedom to choose one's response. And that freedom to choose our response is what you and I have. Now, can I share my mess with you? All right. The mess, thank you, right? It's like, yeah, you're very messy, Justin. All right. The mess that had me weeping uncontrollably on the side of the road, that mess had a very specific name. And that name was Dad. Yeah. My dad was not present in my life. Oh, yeah, I was a baby Gerber model, if you couldn't tell, yes. Well, my dad was not present in my life in many meaningful ways. I remember when my parents divorced at 4, I initially saw my dad every other weekend, and then it became 1 weekend a month, and then it became sometimes 2 or 3 years where I didn't see and or hear from my dad. Now, y'all, there are very complex reasons for that. But when you're a kid, you don't understand complexity, do you? You understand absence. And so I started to wonder, as his absence seeped into my skin, I started to ask, is it my fault that he's not here? And it led me to choose some very poor relationships, people who would bully me, talk about me in front of my face, behind my back. People where I would go into the relationship and I didn't want to be a burden on them. But I realized something very powerful is that I felt it was better to have been poorly chosen to have been forgotten. That was my way of mattering. So I remember choosing to take ownership of how I'd respond with my dad. Now, y'all, sometimes the things that we avoid, they still shape us. And I believed this for years, that if we didn't cause it, if we didn't choose it, if we didn't ask for it, then why are we being shaped by it? And this is an interesting thing, because I finally realized something. I made a decision that in 2019, I was going to go back to Ghana to confront my dad, Will Smith style. Yeah, no, not that version, right? I mean, you all have gone too far, not the Chris Rock version, right? But do you remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air version? For those that don't remember, there was an episode, because Will Smith didn't grow up with his dad either. His dad came into his life one time on the show, right? And he was super excited. His dad was a trucker. He was going to go on the road with his dad. He was going to have so much fun with his dad. And he was going to do all these things. And then his dad did what his dad did. And he told Uncle Phil, tell Will I'll see him next time. And when Will was told this, he was like, it's cool. I'm going to get married without him. I'm going to have kids without him. And what most people had no idea was an unscripted moment in the show. He fell into Uncle Phil's arms and he said, why didn't he love me? And that's what I was going to go do with my dad. Why didn't you love me? Why didn't you fight for me? But instead of doing that, I didn't, because I have a really good therapist. Yes. By the way, get therapy, y'all. For real, right? Get therapy. I don't go to therapy because there's something wrong with me, even though my kids might say something different. But I go to therapy because I want to keep things going right. And so in this moment of going to therapy, I realized something powerful is that I'd already made one step forward. I chose to take ownership of my response. And then I chose to confront my dad. And then I chose to, instead of having a confrontation with my dad, to have a conversation with him. And those are the moments that begin to shape who I was becoming. Now, let me be very clear. It was not all nice and pretty and tied with a bow, because there's many things that still impacted me. There's many things I was still avoiding. All right, see, y'all, because when we create meaning, creating meaning is deciding on who we will become because of what happened to us. And so I remember that I decided to go as I forgave my dad, not because he asked for it, but because it was my choice. So I forgave him. And through my therapist, I remember having the conversations, because guess what, y'all? When I got a divorce, I was scared I was going to become my dad. And that my kids would feel the same way that I felt about him. And I said something out loud to my therapist. I was like, I'm afraid I'm more like my dad than I thought. You know what my therapist said to me? He said, Justin, you are not your dad. You are not your dad. And I was like, I feel like I've seen this movie before. And as I processed this concept that I was not my dad, I realized something, that while I was not repeating my dad's absence, I was repeating his avoidance. So, I had the conversation. I forgave him. And in forgiving him, something magical happened for me, y'all. I didn't realize that all these years I had been holding back that aspect of who I was. You see, because my dad was from Ghana, my mom was from America, and I'd never embraced that Ghanaian side of me. And so when I forgave him, it's like my heritage washed over me. And y'all, I started going back to Ghana once a year, and I started taking people with me. And I started wearing my heritage instead of hiding it. And I remember walking across the street to the school in my dad's home village, and I saw the joy in these kids' eyes, and I remember just seeing their joy, and I was just like, how can I help? Because even through the joy, they were under-resourced. And they said, Justin, we need 90 dual desks. So in 2020, in one of the most challenging times in my life, we provided 90 dual desks for them. Now, thank you, I appreciate that, thank you. Now, I did not ask them to write my name on it. I'm not a narcissist. They chose that themselves, right? And then I asked another question. I said, how can I help? And they said, Justin, the kids have to walk 2 to 3 miles to get access to clean water. And so in January 2023, we commissioned a clean water project so they can have access to clean water right there on the premises. And then what do you think I did next? I asked, how could I help? And they said, Justin, the learning conditions are horrible. Sometimes the kids, because it's overcrowding, they have to study outside under the trees. And I couldn't just write a check for that. And so I started the Work Meaningful Foundation, and we started work on the building. And in January 2023, this is what it looked like. And the next year, this is what it looked like. And the next year, and as a couple weeks ago, we just finished fully raising or fully funding the technology lab that we're going to build. And now we're starting work on the elementary school, and we'll continue across the villages in Ghana. And y'all, why do I tell you this? I tell you this because this would have never have happened had I not first chose to take ownership, had I not chose to go to counseling, had I not chosen to go to confront my dad and turn that into a conversation. And that's what creating meaning is. It's not some magical moment. Creating meaning is deciding on who you will become because of what happened to you. That's what creating meaning is. It's choosing over and over and over again. Right? The way I think about creating meaning is these 3 words of choose, commit, cultivate. Choose, commit, cultivate. I chose ownership and said, Justin, how do you choose your response? I committed to consistent therapy, and I cultivated through refinement and resilience. And so thinking of therapy, y'all, I remember in this moment of therapy and talking about who I would become. And I remember pulling up the research because the research actually supports this work. Psychologists found in decades of research is that people who chose to go through, when they went through difficult experiences and they chose to reflect upon it and decide on how they would make meaning from it, that they actually had greater resilience, better emotional support, and better relationships. But let me share what meaning is not. Meaning is not pretending something is good that's not good. It's not pretending that something didn't hurt and just like, yeah, no, that's not meaning. But what real meaning is in those hard moments, choosing again and again to do that. And that's what I did consistently through therapy. And I remembered I was choosing who I'd become, not just because of my dad, but what type of dad I would become, what type of father, what type of husband, what type of leader. I want you to think about in your brain one mess that's been shaping you. One mess. Maybe you caused it or maybe you didn't. Has it caused you to be cynical, distant, fearful? And if you continue avoiding it for the next 5 years, who will you become? Now, I want to ask a different question. What if you took one step forward? Maybe it's counseling. Maybe it's conversation, an apology, an honest admission. Who could you become? I'm not perfect, y'all. Right? I'm becoming and trying to be the best dad I could be. And I realize that I even create some messes too. You create some messes. Yeah, ask my kids, they'll tell you. Yeah. And they're here in the audience, so when you find them, they'll tell you, Dad creates a lot of messes. And I remember I made a decision once because I wasn't as meaningful present with my kids. And so I decided that when I would drop them off to school and pick them up, that I would not be on the phone. That we would just play music and ask how your day was and all these kind of things. And then one day, I just come back from Ghana and we were working on this real new big presentation, worked to a different beat. And I was so excited. And I was talking to my director of operations while I was making the kids breakfast. And then we got in the car and I was talking to my director of operations and we were talking about how we were bringing these African drummers to the conference. It was going to be a great experience for all the participants. And I was really excited. We pulled up into the car rider line. And then as I got ready to say goodbye, I told my director of operations 1 second. And I looked in the back seat and my daughter, Lydia, was crying. But I was like, Lydia, what's wrong? She said, Dad, you promised. And at that moment, I had to make a choice. I was either going to explain it away or apologize. And so I explained it away. And one of the things, no, I'm joking. I really wanted to, though. But I apologized. And I swear my daughter, like, she's too late to apologize. It's too late. She didn't, but in my brain, she did. And so we got out of the car rider line. I put on some Kids Bop song that was 2 minutes and 35 seconds or something. We danced, we had fun, and we had a great time. Y'all, that's real life. That's where meaning lives, when we choose over and over and over again to make meaning. Y'all, sometimes avoidance protects us when we're not ready to deal with something, and we need that at times. But avoidance was never meant to be permanent. We have an opportunity to step forward and to make one small step. Because Mandela didn't choose the prison. Malala didn't choose the bullet. Frankel didn't choose the camp. And I certainly didn't choose my dad's absence. But in each of these examples, the choosing of one's response was critical. And there I was, 33, pulled over on the side of the road, gripping the steering wheel, wondering while I was weeping uncontrollably. Justin, what's wrong with you? Well, today, I ask a different question. What is shaping me into? Because creating meaning is deciding who you will become because of what happened to you. Thank you.